It starts with flashing lights and a sense of tension in the air. A police officer approaches, expecting compliance, but things don't go as planned. In this video, we dive into a real-life moment where authority meets resistance, testing the boundaries of the First Amendment and individual rights. What begins as a simple interaction quickly escalates into a battle of wits and willpower. A calm yet firm citizen refuses to give up their ID without cause, challenging the officers to explain their actions. The atmosphere grows heavy with suspense as legal rights and personal freedoms take center stage. You can feel the pressure as both sides hold their ground, creating a situation that keeps everyone watching on edge. This isn't just another routine stop, it's a moment where accountability is demanded, where the question of how far is too far comes into play. Just when you think you know how it'll end, the story takes an unexpected turn. Stay tuned to see how this confrontation unfolds and whether the person standing their ground will walk away victorious, or if the system will tighten its grip. As the officer stands firm, their voice steady but with a hint of frustration, the citizen calmly asks, "Am I being detained?" It's a question that changes the tone of the encounter, shifting the focus to the law itself. The officer hesitates, glancing at their partner, as if searching for the right response. The citizen knows their rights and isn't afraid to assert them, but the tension between the two is unmistakable. What brought them to this moment? Earlier that day, the individual had been filming in a public space, documenting their surroundings and exercising their First Amendment right. It was a routine activity until someone called the authorities, claiming suspicious behavior. Now the officers stand between the citizen and their freedom, demanding ID without providing a clear reason. The situation becomes a test of patience and knowledge, with each side unwilling to back down. The officers insist they're just doing their job, but the citizen pushes back, questioning the legality of their demands. The crowd nearby begins to take notice, the air thick with curiosity and unease. It feels like something is about to break, but what? And for whom? The officer takes a step closer, their tone now firmer, but the citizen doesn't flinch. "I'm not refusing to cooperate," they explain. "I'm just asking you to follow the law." It's a simple statement, but it shifts the dynamic, placing the officers on the defensive. A small crowd gathers at a distance, some recording the encounter, others whispering among themselves. You can feel the weight of eyes watching, adding another layer of pressure to an already tense situation. The officers exchange glances, clearly debating their next move. Meanwhile, the citizen keeps their voice steady, calmly reminding them of the Fourth Amendment, the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. It's a moment that feels bigger than the people involved, a clash between authority and the principle of accountability. Some of the onlookers begin to speak up, quietly siding with the citizen. "They don't have to give their ID," someone mutters. The officers seem aware of the shifting mood, but instead of stepping back, they double down, asking again for identification. The citizen holds their ground, politely but firmly. It's a standoff now, not just about ID, but about principles. Neither side seems ready to give in, and the tension only grows. The officer's hand rests lightly on their radio, their jaw tightening as the tension hangs in the air. The citizen, unshaken, takes a small step back, maintaining their space. "I've asked you 3 times now," the officer says, their voice rising slightly. "And I'm asking again. Let me see your ID." The crowd is silent, all eyes locked on the unfolding scene. The pressure is palpable, each word adding another layer to the confrontation. The citizen remains calm, their hands visible at their sides. "With all due respect, officer," they reply, "I'm not required to provide ID unless I'm being detained." "Am I free to go?" The officer doesn't respond immediately, their silence speaking volumes. It's clear they're weighing their next move, torn between de-escalation and enforcing their perceived authority. A second officer steps forward now, their presence adding to the tension. "We just need to know who you are," they say, their tone a little softer but still firm. This doesn't have to be difficult. But the citizen stands their ground, knowing that giving in now could set a dangerous precedent. The standoff reaches a boiling point as voices from the crowd grow louder, some shouting encouragement, others questioning the officer's actions. It feels like the situation could tip in any direction, and no one knows what will happen next. As the tension builds, the officer holding the radio finally speaks into it, calling for a supervisor. The citizen stays composed, but there's a flicker of unease. A supervisor means more attention, possibly more pressure, but also a chance for accountability. The crowd senses the shift, and the murmurs grow louder. Some are questioning the officer's authority, while others debate whether the citizen is taking things too far. It's no longer just a simple encounter. It's become a spectacle, a public test of rights and power. Minutes later, the supervisor arrives, stepping out of a patrol car with an air of authority. They quickly assess the scene, their sharp gaze moving from the officers to the citizen and then to the crowd. "What's going on here?" they ask, their tone firm but neutral. The first officer begins explaining, their words carefully chosen, but they leave out key details. The citizen listens closely and finally interjects. "With respect, that's not what happened," they say, their voice steady but louder now, addressing not just the officers but the crowd as well. "I was exercising my First Amendment rights. They approached me without cause and are demanding ID. I haven't done anything wrong." The supervisor looks at the citizen, then back at the officers, their expression unreadable. Just as it seems the situation might de-escalate, a voice from the crowd shouts, "Let them go. They know their rights." The atmosphere shifts again, now charged with even more energy. The supervisor raises a hand to quiet the crowd, but steps closer to the citizen, lowering their voice. "Are you sure you want to keep this going?" they ask, their words laced with subtle warning. The citizen pauses, the tension peaking once again. No one can predict what will happen next. The air is thick with anticipation as the supervisor studies the citizen, weighing their next move carefully. The crowd is restless, recording, whispering, waiting for something to tip the scales. The citizen, calm but resolute, repeats the question that's hung in the air for too long. "Am I being detained, or am I free to go?" The supervisor sighs, turning to the officers. "Do we have reasonable suspicion of a crime here?" Their tone is sharp, cutting through the tension. The officers hesitate, glancing at each other, unsure of how to respond. The silence says it all, and the crowd catches on immediately. A few cheers break out, while others call out, "Know the law." Finally, the supervisor nods toward the citizen. "You're free to go," they say, their voice firm but measured. Relief washes over the crowd, but the citizen doesn't move just yet. Instead, they address the officers. "Next time, remember this moment. Rights matter." As the citizen begins to walk away, one of the officers mutters something under their breath, a comment too low for the crowd to hear, but loud enough to make the supervisor snap their head toward them. "That's enough," the supervisor says sharply, their tone leaving no room for argument. The citizen disappears into the crowd, but just as things seem to settle, someone steps forward with their phone. "I got it all on video," they announce loudly, their voice cutting through the fading noise. The officers freeze, and the crowd buzzes with excitement. The real twist isn't just the resolution, it's the evidence left behind, a record of everything that unfolded. The stage is now set for an even bigger conversation, one that goes beyond this moment. As the crowd slowly begins to disperse, there's a lingering sense of triumph in the air. The citizens' calm defiance and the eventual acknowledgement of their rights leave an impression on everyone who witnessed the encounter. The person who recorded the entire incident promises to share the footage, ensuring the story doesn't end here. The officers retreat to their patrol cars, visibly tense but saying nothing more. The supervisor, standing alone for a moment, seems to reflect on what just happened before heading back to their vehicle. For the citizen, this wasn't just about the right to refuse an ID request. It was about making a stand for personal freedoms. They walk away with quiet confidence, knowing their actions didn't just protect their own rights, but reminded everyone present of the importance of holding authority accountable. The crowd exchanges a few final words, some expressing admiration, others debating whether it had all gone too far. But one thing is clear: everyone leaves with something to think about. This wasn't just an interaction. It was a lesson in knowing your rights and standing firm when they're challenged. And just like that, the street returns to its usual rhythm, though the memory of what happened won't fade anytime soon.